Hey, thanks so much for coming in. I want to talk about our trek in Iceland, our 10-day hike there. I want to talk about the tips and the tricks and the gear that we used, what I'm thankful that I took, what I wish I would have taken. I learned an awful lot. Hopefully maybe this video can enlighten you and get you prepared and get you ready for an Iceland trek or an Iceland hike, okay? Because that is a different place, okay? That is like being on another planet altogether. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. My channel is called Stretch Yourself, and so please like and subscribe. Please comment. Please let me know. Have you hiked in Iceland before? Or are you planning a hike? Are you planning a trek? Are you going with a group or are you going solo? Please give me a comment and let me know. I'd love to hear your story. So like I said, this trek that I went on with about 12 other people was a 10-day trek. I was not prepared for this. I had no idea how much it would rain. I was not prepared for how bad the weather would be. There was horizontal rain and constant wind. And I know, I should have known. It was really bad. We got really cold. I ended up getting very sick. Surprised I didn't get bronchitis or pneumonia, actually. But yeah, Iceland is like another world on Earth. It's so different, and that's what makes it so wonderful. And it is beautiful. It's the most unique landscape I've ever been on this planet. We did experience rain almost every single day, and rain and wind. It wasn't so much physically challenging for me. I had physically prepared. Spiritually and mentally, I had not prepared for this kind of inclement weather, okay? But Albert, our tour guide, he lives there. He does 4 of these actually per year. And he said that was about the rainiest trek that he has been on in many years. So at least there's that. Didn't make it any better. I'm gonna talk about several things. I'm gonna talk about gear. I'm gonna talk about training. I'm gonna talk about the weight of your pack. And I'm going to talk about sleep and food. Now, gear. What I had really wished for was waterproof coat and pants. I would say my pants are waterproof, but not my coat. My coat definitely wasn't. I did see 3 of the hikers that were with the group. They had Arc'teryx, which I know has its own, but at the end of the day, they were dry inside. I think Arc'teryx was the best out of all the brands that we had there. I know that's just an American brand. I know there's plenty of other European brands that are probably as good or much better. What I do highly suggest is not only have you have that waterproof layer, but then also have several upper layers to take on and take off, because you're gonna get hot and you're gonna get cold, and you're gonna wanna take off those light layers and have all those beneath the waterproof layer, especially if it's not raining. When it's dry in the morning, if it's gonna be like a drier day, we would take our wet clothes, like our wet socks and our wet underwear and those things, and tie them to the back of the backpack, and then they would air dry throughout the day. You would mostly have dry clothes going into the night. The backpack that I took is a Kestrel. It's an REI brand, Kestrel 38. So 38 liter. If you have a backpack that goes like up to 44 liters, it's gonna work just fine for even for a long trek like we had, like a 10-day trek. The cover that comes with this backpack, it would normally work fine, but as you can see here, we were in a yellow weather alert and the wind was going 100 kilometers an hour there. The wind would just completely take off this backpack cover, and it wasn't any good. I wish I would have had a little bit larger of a backpack cover for like that really, really heavy, that horizontal wind coming at you, and it would have stayed on. So, but we all had that problem, it seemed like. Highly suggest trekking poles. There's not like a huge amount of elevation gain or loss, in Iceland, but you do come across snow, you do come across ice, you could be hiking on a glacier. We briefly hiked on a glacier. So, and these trekking poles, they will soak up about 15% of your impact, okay? So, over time, they really, really help. My hands were so freezing cold that I got lazy and I stopped using these trekking poles. And then after a few days, I would say day 6 or 7, started having lower back problems, and I'm almost positive it was because I was not using these trekking poles, and then that would have really helped if I had been using them. But my hands were so freezing cold that I just gave up and put them in my backpack. You got to bring a sleeping bag, and so I brought one like this that I got that's really compact. You know, it gets as small as this. If you're going to be staying in huts like we did, your temperature grade of your sleeping bag really isn't that crucial. You're going to be fine in the huts overnight. You'll be fine with like a pretty normal sleeping bag. You just want it really compact to get it in your backpack. And it's not like you can just hang this sleeping bag on the outside of your backpack. You probably could with a larger dry bag, but it's going to get wet, and you don't want to take that chance. You do not want to have a wet sleeping bag. I mean, that sleeping bag was the one thing that was dry in my backpack, and it was the one thing that actually, like, I could heat up my core after the hike. I would be in my sleeping bag for like several hours just trying to heat up my core because I was so freezing cold from that hike. So like I mentioned, dry bags, definitely bring dry bags. I would bring at least 3 dry bags. I did not prepare. I didn't have one dry bag, so I bought one at the hostel that we stayed at before we started hiking. Hiking boots. So the hiking boots that I have are the Merrells. These are waterproof. They worked pretty good. They definitely soaked in a lot faster than I thought they would. I got the high tops. You don't necessarily need the high tops in Iceland. A trick when having these at the end of the night is they're going to be completely wet and soaked through, right? If it's raining, take out the insole like this and just simply put it right there. Put it right there like that and leave it like that overnight. This whole hiking boot is going to be wet and soaked through in the morning. Okay, that's what they were. Very gross. This will be dry, so it'll be nice to plant your foot on this onto something dry, and the rest will be kind of wet and yeah. They did good. They did good with my feet. The only thing that did affect my feet was the water. You know, my wool socks, they got waterlogged, and yeah, my feet took a beating in the river crossings, which bring me to the next piece of gear. Are my water shoes. I decided to take these water shoes instead of sandals. They do have their benefits, their pluses and minuses. These don't take any space up in your backpack. That's a plus. Secondly, sand never got in these. Okay, they just wrap right around your foot like really nicely. The downside of these is I wish they had a little bit thicker of a sole. We did 30 to 35 river crossings. In the end, my feet were bruised going on the rocks and just trying to get across, and the water is glacial cold, so it's absolutely freezing. So you just want to cross it as fast as possible. But most people had sandals. I was the only one with water shoes. Everyone else had sandals. If I could just take a quick time out and just say, I know I'm complaining and whining and bitching about this hike and the horrible weather and everything, but this was an incredible experience. I mean, I truly stretched myself, but then look at the beauty and the landscapes that we got to experience that very few people do. Here's another trick right here, is that I would do laundry in the shower, but these were only for showers where they weren't timed, okay? Because there were 2 huts that we went to where we only had 4 or 5 minutes per token. There were 2 huts that didn't have a time limit, and so I would clean myself first, and then I would do laundry. I would wash my socks and underwear and maybe my buff. This is probably one of the most important things you can have. And there are so many uses for a buff. The most important use that I had for this buff, there were midges on certain hikes, and so it just had this. Plus it just kept me warm in the cold, you know, from my breath. It just kept me warm. I just had this on all the time. Another use, great sleeping mask at night. And you can use the buff for other uses like this. You can use it as a sweat headband. Use it around your neck if you want to stay warm. You can wrap it around your wrist like this too and use it. Lots of uses for the buff. Huge fan. Definitely got to bring one. And then other things, you got your usual things. You got your toiletries. I definitely would bring electrolytes. I would have a pack of electrolytes after the hike, and I think that really helped. I get restless leg syndrome. Ibuprofen, of course. I ended up using ibuprofen at the end of every trek too, towards the end, because I had some really severe lower back pain that was just giving me spasms. And then your usual things like, you know, oh, bring one water bottle, earplugs for night. I can't even tell you. I'm going to talk about that later. I brought 2 power banks for all my camera gear since I was doing this YouTube video. You want to bring a Euro adapter as well, and money and sunglasses and that. I'm going to have a list of all of these items in the description below. Okay, camera gear. What I'm filming from right here is this my Panasonic Lumix camera, but I really only use this for photos, okay? What I use for video the whole time was this Insta360 Ace Pro, okay? So almost everything that you see in the B-roll is from this guy. But back to the main camera, what I had was this zoom lens, and it's a 40 to 150 zoom lens for those really far shots that, like you see here, to capture some real distance. And so I was glad. I know it's heavy. The whole thing with the lens and the camera is like 3.5 to 4 pounds, but it was definitely worth it, as I caught some pretty impressive photos. Now to capture footage in the air was my drone, and it's a Mavic Air 3. So glad I had this. Got a lot of great drone footage, as you can see here. I brought 2 batteries. Another little tip or trick about this too, you don't need to bring a case or anything, obviously. And so I would take one of my sweatshirts or something, or a pair of pants or something like that, and I would wrap this around and put it in my backpack for the whole 10 days. Actually worked just fine. I've done that several times actually, and it works great. And then, like I mentioned, power banks. I brought 2 of these power banks. Training, okay? At 54 years old, I want to be careful and I want to train for this. I want to physically conquer this, right? I don't want that to be an issue for me. I want to be able to concentrate on my video production and whatever else, and to enjoy the landscapes and enjoy it all, and not be, you know, completely tired, or worst case scenario, have to quit during the middle of it. I would say I trained for this for about 4 months, and I would do, the most important thing would be a long hike on Saturdays or Sundays, and I would choose like the most arduous hikes in the Portland area, about like 10 to 15 miles, 2,000 to 5,000 in elevation gain and loss. What I did also during the week is I did strength training, and I would try to do strength training like twice a week at the gym, and do lower body, mainly lower body core, work on core. Actually, I wish I would have worked on more core, actually, because of that lower back pain that I had. That's where I wish I would have concentrated more. But then, and then work on upper body, you know, once a week, but mainly focus on core and lower body. I also ran about once a week, you know, just to work on the cardio and try and stay in shape and stay fit. 2 things I wish I would have concentrated on more is my core. Like, I wish I would have had a stronger core, and then also my hip flexors. My hip flexors, I think, were tight and weak because they would be done and fatigued at the end of almost every single day. Another thing I'd like to talk about is the weight. You know, the weight of your backpack and the weight of what you have. I think I hit about 26 pounds for everything, and that included the camera equipment as well, and that included most of the things that I was wearing. If it's freezing cold and it's raining and windy, you're gonna have most of your layers on anyway. You can do 25 pounds with everything, you'll be fine. Sleep is important, right? It's a third of our lives, okay? We may not think it, but sleep is very important. And I did not get much sleep on this trek, okay? The snoring was insane. Like, I used the buff for my eyes, and I had earplugs for my ears. It's not just from snoring, okay? I mean, I got a lack of sleep from the jet lag. If you can get there early and be there for like 3 days or so before you go out on the trek, I highly suggest that. And then also another thing to take and consider too is the daylight. It doesn't get dark. It's like dusk for about 4 or 5 hours, but other than that, there's daylight right when you go to bed, and daylight when you wake up. So if that bothers you, then yeah, that's where that buff really came in handy, to have that for a sleeping mask. So as far as food goes, we would have a hearty breakfast in the huts and a hearty dinner in the huts. Albert, our tour guide, he made the breakfast and the dinner for us. We would do cleanup. But when it came to lunches, then we would make our own lunches at the hut in the morning before we went on the trek. I would make sure to get really full during the breakfast and then at dinners as well. And I never really went hungry. Or 3 of the 9 huts that we found beer and snacks. So sometimes I would buy a couple of extra beers just so I could have like one for the next hut that night as like a reward for for going out and hiking all day. Albert made some incredible breakfasts and dinners for us, including a duck one night, and that was absolutely incredible. So I hope you found this a little helpful. I hope that I offered you some gear and some tips and tricks about how to go hiking in Iceland. Please let me know in the comments. Let me know if I forgot anything. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them. But like I said, I'm going to leave all the gear in the description below. Thanks again so much for watching. Take care.